Today, we're going to talk about game development from tech to art. Lots of people that I talk with usually want to be developers, like programmers, or like full 3D developers. Rarely I see people that are willing to try a bit of both ways. Today I'm going to explain the role of the technical artist, so what do we do, and what are the benefits, because there are some benefits to that. And also the good practices of game development. Maybe that you guys want to come and join the AAA industry at some point, or you may just want to do your own indie studio and launch the best game ever seen and become rich. You can try to do that. There's nothing preventing you from doing this. So, this works, yes. So, yes, game development to tech to art. We're not covering only the role, but also the techniques. Standards for game development, so what are best practices, but also what are requirements of you. Stuff that's not usual, is not so immediate to learn, but stuff that you may need. And how do you plan your game? This is mostly useful for people that want to go in the indie scene, so make their own games with their own teams. But it's also pretty useful if you want to join a bigger team, mostly because they expect you to know the full pipeline, they expect to know your position in the bigger scheme of things. And there will be some tips for tech art, and not necessarily useful only for people that do exactly my job, but also for programmers and 3D artists alike. Why bother? That's a fair question. Technical art is overlooked. As I was saying, no one really asks or is willing to pursue this kind of career. It's kind of a niche. It's like the UX artist. No one wants to do the UX art. No one wants to work with interface only. Most people just want to do Illustrator, character design. No one wants really to do the rock artist. It's like one of those niche roles. But even though it's overlooked, having a technical artist, especially if you have a smaller team, can change a lot the outcome of your development. And when it comes to bigger teams, it can improve the quality of life in development by a lot, by a big margin. And why bother with the standards of the industry is, well, it's kind of obvious, but if things are done randomly, without a method and without proper pipeline management, not gonna end really well. You're gonna have bigger issues down the line. Oh yes, this is actually okay. So okay. Yes, this is. The problem is this: when you start working, usually you start with a game design, we start with an idea, and you start cramming down assets into the pipeline. Yes, it takes a while. It takes a while to get to a point where you actually have problems with the game development itself. You get to a point where you actually start to have hiccups. You start to have problems with the optimization. We start to have problems with the frame rate. You start to have game crashes, and most of those times you'll just have a memory dump, and you just start crying overnight because the deadline is the day after, and you have absolutely no clue of what's going wrong. And I've seen this happen many times, and all-nighters seem fun when you are a student. When the age starts keeping up, no, they're not fun anymore. You may want to skip those. So, a couple of stories to tell. Has any of you worked so far in a project or anything? Even a fun project, a mod, or something like that? Has any of you worked in these kind of things? Okay. Okay, lots of hands. Okay, let's start with her.
Okay, so I'm working on an app for like phone app that is that main goal is to match clothes for people. So that's my project. I don't know what to say.
Okay, that's a good summer. Did you encounter such problems? Did you encounter issues down the development, or it's going all smooth and silky?
No, it's never going smooth. There are always trouble because when you start even doing a small project, then you have to always remember that the whole team is working on this project. So you have to always communicate to other people what you are doing and ask them what they are doing, so you have to have great communication channels.
Good. This is a good point. It's kind of reflective. Who else was there?
I was doing a small school project, but I was doing it alone, and it was for the subject, one of the subjects from programming, and it was the very easy logging games 2D and one 3D game. It was not very hard because those was easy games, but it was very funny to make this because you were seeing what you were doing, and you can have a lot of fun while making this game, because the game is fun.
Yes, indeed it is. Okay, this is one of the cases where you don't have enough time on the project to start piling up problems, like as much as you would like to. Because you're working alone on it, so it's likely that over a short, I think it's a short period of time, it was not a month.
Like 2 months.
So you still remember what you wrote, like even without commenting the code and properly documenting it, you still remember what you wrote. So you never went like 6 months after to your code. It's like, who wrote this? Like, how did this conjure in the world? Yeah, this is another case scenario. This will never happen when doing a legit game though, because it's gonna be like, okay, if someone tells you that a game is gonna take less than 6 months for development, even if it's match free, they're bullshitting you. It's not possible to spend less than several months on a game, because yes, it takes one afternoon to make the match-free code, but then you need to do the interface, the player feedback, you need to fix bugs, you need to do the graphics, you need to do the test scenario, you need to do the SFX. Even the simplest game takes months to release. So yeah, this is not likely to happen ever again if you start working on a bigger project. Let's see basics of game development. This is and now working this one. Okay, so let's take a look. Let's take a look at what are like the staple things. Okay, which direction is? Oh, here it is. Don't worry, I'm figuring this one out at some point. So, the 3 points of game development. This actually works even if you're not really wanting to go in game development. Even if you're gonna do a database management app for a bank, let's say, these are 3 pillars that you always have to work with any type of development software. I mean, this work even from outside of software development. This works even if you do architecture. So they're kind of a universal rule of thumb. But in the case, let's work on what we have in game development. So, what is okay? This is getting puzzling. So if I do this, it goes up. You're no hand in this. Okay, game development basics. We're getting there. Scope design. I didn't tell how to use this. What's going? Okay, sorry guys. Technical difficulties. Oh, come on, now. Okay, this is the right one. So, as I was saying, everything you need to work takes into account all the various pieces of the game development itself. What I said before, if working on a tic-tac-toe project means that you have to work on not only on the code, but also on the other facets of the game. Let's say that you make a tic-tac-toe and your client, if you have a publisher, or I don't know, whoever is giving you the money to develop this game, may it be the players, because the players give you money to develop a game by paying for the game, and they may want something from you as a developer. They're not entitled to make demands, but they're entitled to make requests. And let's say you want to make them happy. You want to add the tic-tac-toe versus duel mode, but wait, you write the entire game without taking account of the multiplayer. Now what? The entire structure of the game has to be rewritten from scratch. You're making a new game. You're not expanding your old project. Your old project, you can trash it, because we're going to do a completely new thing. This is called technical debt. Technical debt is the project killer. Doesn't matter if a AAA studio or a 3 people working in a bedroom. This is the project, the ultimate project killer. Yes. most of the times that you hear in the news and you see like games are not released, games are delayed, there's problems, usually the key issue, aside of course from the time that it needs to make actual content, that sometimes it just takes more than expected to make content, in most of the cases problems are with the technical debt. A feature wasn't properly planned in the engine and now the game is crashing every time you try to add a treat. Could happen. Or I don't know, you want to add guns in your game and you don't have a first-person firing mechanic, your code is not meant to work with that. This is kind of stuff that, in hindsight, it's really bad for you. But we can actually prevent. We need to avoid the common pitfalls. The common pitfall, the first one being the poorly written code. Guys, seriously, I can't stress it enough for who of you that is actually working on the code. For the love of everything that is holy on this earth, comment your code and make it readable by other people. Because if other people in any team has to come to you and tell you what the hell did you write, you're doing your job bad. And there's no excuse, there's no saying I was under stress, I was under rush, the deadlines, the crunch. Doesn't matter. You're doing your job bad. You should be at least readable. It doesn't have to be every line of code commented by any means, but at least the basics. And the same goes, this also goes for the artist, naming convention is important. One of the few things that is absolutely completely overlooked in indie studios is naming convention. It's a good practice, even if you're running your own small studio or team, to decide how to name things. Because if I find, I don't know, Gregor 25, whatever, like literally, I'm not whatever on the file name .png. This could be literally anything. A guy called Gregor has made a file, but he doesn't know what it's for, and he said whatever. The other artists don't know. The other people in the team don't know. So everything has to be named accordingly. Same thing when you're writing a code of class. Please, the name of the class should be what the class actually does. If a class is for spawning cubes, don't call it whatever dot void, because it's wrong. It's wrong and it's really halting your development to a grind. By extension, of course, documentation, which is not necessarily, but it's always nice to have at least writing 10 lines of text describing what you've done if you're working especially on code. For the artist, this is more like, no, you will never write documentation, let's be fair. As a technical artist, yes, you get the best of both worlds. And in this one, it's a bit more tricky. Implementing a thing the fast way, but not the best way. This is a common mistake done when you are under pressure, when you are under deadlines. And it's understandable. No one will blame you for this if you have little time. That's a problem of the management. If you are your own management as an indie studio, you screwed up at some point deciding how much time you were gonna use for that. But yes, this is a common mistake. Like you want to implement, I don't know, a tree spawner in the world, and you just write a code that spawns tree everywhere, but you have no information where they are stored. So if you need them as a feature later on, they are wasted completely. You need to rewrite the system from scratch. Missing frameworks, it's really case to case, but poor optimization and waterfall development are pretty much similar. Poor optimization is simply put, as you work, you need to think about your target console, everywhere you want to run it. If you want to make a mobile game, that's good for you, but you need to be always conscious about what are the limits of your console. Of course, if you're making a console game for PS4, it won't look as nice. Like, it would look much nicer than a mobile phone game, of course. The same goes if you have PC or if you have Switch. Kinda changes a lot. So always bear in mind keeping the game optimized throughout all the game. Don't just wake up like in 1 year of development, the last month. Oh yes, everything runs at 10 FPS and crashes every now and then. We should optimize the game. That means you should remake the game from scratch. Like, there's no way around it. You need to remake every asset from scratch. So, questions? Any example that comes to your mind, a project that has been cancelled for technical issues, like games that you liked, you were looking forward to, even Kickstarter game, mostly Kickstarter game, that like due to technical problems were just delayed or cancelled. Any of you has been, you know, has a broken heart over a game that has been delayed or cancelled at some point? Okay, that's a good thing. No one here has to suffer. I had, so I can share this experience as well. There's a game called Unsung Story that was supposed to be a spiritual successor of Final Fantasy Tactics. It didn't really turn out well. It was funded 700% what they asked for 6 years ago, and we've never seen any shred of gameplay ever since. Because they messed up with the graphic engine twice, and they had to rewrite the engine from scratch twice, 6 years later, and $75 million later, there's still nothing to show that work has been done. They may have just used them, like, you know, for the chimney or something, like just to warm themselves up. Yeah, this is the right one. The second part is the scope. The scope is far easier, like the size of your game. Just go, yeah, we'll just go to the mistakes because it's better to explain like that. Scope creep is when you say, okay, let's make a tic-tac-toe game, tic-tac-toe match-free, and it turns out in a AAA MMO game, it's like, you're gonna have like the size of Europe of playable landscape, it's gonna be beautiful, it's gonna have dynamic weather and day and night cycle. Dude, you were doing a match-free game, what happened? Yeah, a bit, one feature there, one feature there. And if you think that I'm joking, if you think that I'm making things up, this actually happened. Like a mobile game actually turned into a AAA MMO that of course failed because it doesn't really have the same budget. The same thing, why the scope creep is a constant thing, like people coming in, entering the room and it's like, you know what would be really cool? Insert feature. This will happen, like always, everywhere, doesn't matter, you can't escape, there will be always the scope creepers that enter the room and say, yes, let's add this into the game, it's gonna be awesome. No, saying no to those people is the hardest part of planning your game. And the scope scaling is the other thing. You can't start the project right off the bat. If you are 4 people, you can't do World of Warcraft. Because if you are 4 people, you can go do World of Warcraft if you have nothing to do for the next 25 years. Give or take. Of course, if you are Bruce Wayne and you have like infinite amount of money and you want to make the game on your own, treat yourself. The scope scale, yeah, it's just like a micromanagement of scope scaling. The scope sales is your target audience. When you're making a game, always understand who you are selling this game to. Because I've seen a seasoned game developer answer me, the world is my target. No, this is not how marketing works, this is not anything like that works. Like, you can't please a 13-year-old boy used to, I don't know, shooting a gory thing in Doom and a 45-year-old housewife that has played only Farmville. You can make a game that makes everybody happy. You need to pick yours, pick one. Unless you're doing Star Citizen. If you're doing Star Citizen, everything is... did I actually do back or forth? Like I started to wonder this. Yes. No, I actually... Okay, it is. So... but I did put this question already. Yeah. Jesus Christ, what's going on here? Okay guys, nobody panics, this is haunted. There's like a dead developer is inside of this. Oh yes, this is. Be gone, spirit. So, design. How many of you want to be a game designer? Okay, it's really 2 more than I expected. So there's another hand in the dark. Yes, sounds creepier than another hand in the dark. Okay, for who of you that like to be game developer, would like to be game designers, it's important to follow a couple of tips as well. Like there's good enough for everyone. everything should be laid down coherently right off the bat. And also you need to know what feature you're gonna have in the game. It doesn't have to be by the minute, by the pixel, but you need to know what's your game about and what general features are. So the programmers, when you go to the programmers and you hand them the brief, writing documentation, when you hand them the brief, it's like, okay, this game has loot, character creation, I don't know, action combat, and I don't know, housing, player housing. The developers, the programmers know this, know what to start doing. So they know that, for instance, the player profile will have the housing values and stuff like that. It's good to plan the architecture ahead according to what the game designer says. This doesn't mean that the game designer is the ultimate god of development, because also the game designer has to understand what is doable. It's pointless that you go to people and say, okay, we're gonna procedurally generate the map of Europe playable, because the programmer will just raise an eyebrow, so like, where's the $200 million for that? Like, that's what's gonna happen. And this is important, feedback is the key. Don't be a diva, unless you are Hideo Kojima, that he can't get away with not getting feedback from anyone, and he still gets feedback from Guillermo del Toro, so we have a lot going on there. Unless you are one of those two. Are you Hideo Kojima or Guillermo del Toro? No, if they are, like, I need an autograph, but aside from that, if you are not, feedback is important. It's not like you're a slave to anyone that criticizes your work, by any means. But if someone gives you constructive feedback, please listen to them, at least consider what they had to say. Because it may be the key difference between failing a project and making a good game. And by the love of God, play your own games. Don't like just release them and like expect the other to be awesome is the thing. Alright, we can do this? Yes. Honestly, yes, we kind of covered most of this, but I would like to stress out on the second point. If you can describe or sell your game with a single tweet, you're not having a clear scope of your game. If I ask you right off the bat, what's your game about? Why should I buy it? You have 140 characters to tell me why it's the best game ever and why I should buy it. If you can't, you need to rethink what you're doing. You need to rethink the whole project. Example, Easy Rain, or like Detroit Become Human. Detroit Become Human is a very complex game with a lot of story going on, a lot of mechanics going on. Some would say that it's a walking simulator, some would say that it's an interactive movie, whatever. But it's still a game that it's sellable in 140 characters. So, a modern tale about the border of humanity and machine. That's it. You solved the game. Even less than 140 characters. Didn't count them, but I'm pretty sure it's like below. Then you're selling, you're doing your game well. Then you can start building on top of that. So, what are the features? This is the last bit for game designer, I promise. Then I'll give some love to everyone else. A feature is essentially a mechanic of your game that it's either serves as a purpose of storytelling or as a purpose of experience, of user experience. How it's related to the art and the tech of the game. The art of the game, of course, through a feature implemented in a particular visual way, you can tell a lot. This would be, going technical, would be the difference between a diegetic interface and a non-diegetic interface. Has anyone ever heard of the word diegetic before? Allow me. The diegetic means that it's in the word. A good example of diegetic is Dead Space. Dead Space has a lot of stuff going on in the game. All the interface is holograms in the game world. Your light bar is the lights on the back of your suit. You don't have the UIs, like 2D UIs telling you're dying. No, you have everything in the game. That's diegetic. And non-diegetic is World of Warcraft, when you have just like a massive wall of icons and things. No, none of them is necessarily wrong, but they tell a different story. They tell a different message. It may pose a technical challenge. The stuff to do in that space is much more complex than a regular UI, for instance. who did that? I don't know.
No.
No, yeah, it's new. Yeah, sorry, I started to doubt what's going next. So, feature creep is the same thing. Don't add things as a designer. And don't make them larger. Like if you have a feature which is like regular combat by press A attack, don't make it, yes, I press A attack, but then I can parry, but then I can roll on the left, roll on the right. Yes, it's Dark Souls at that point. Like just go play Dark Souls if you like it. This much, or become Miyazaki and get hired from software. Like guys, you can do it. Just learn Japanese, and good luck with that. Feature stack is nice. Feature stack is, we have this idea, then we have this idea, and then we have this idea that technically looks like you're actually improving and iterating over the idea, but actually you're not. You're adding new things that don't necessarily serve the purpose of the thing it was before. Let's say housing. We have housing, now let's make that housing, you can decide the shape of the house. Now let's make that you can decide the textures of the house. Now let's make that you can dynamically place the house. Yes, you're feature stacking. Like, be happy with having a house and putting stuff into it. That's good enough. If it's not serving a purpose, it may be microtransaction the purpose, like purely aesthetic in the game, but it's microtransaction, you get money for that, good for you. But if it's not serving a purpose and or not helping other features, you're just stacking stuff on top of each other. It's questions time. It's part 1 actually. Questions time.
So
you first.
it's very hard in game development because when you have a project, you can master everything in this project, yes? And when is the wall, you have to stop and you should go to the next step, the next part of the project.
You mean which are the stages?
When you should stop mastering the project and you should leave it and make new features and leave this feature alone. And like you said, the housing, yes? And you have the housing and you should encourage the housing, or you have to go to the other step and make other features in game.
Well, I give you these quotes from Miyamoto, the ex-creative director of Nintendo. He may have made a couple of things actually. He said that a good idea, a good feature, is not one that solves a problem, but solves many problems at once. It's a good idea to stop adding new features the moment that the features are self-serving. If you're adding a new feature just for the sake of it, and it's not helping the game in any way, it's pointless, and you're just adding stuff. And if you have money to throw at the project because you are rich and you have many people and you have the publisher, that's good for you. If it's not the case, you're wasting everybody's time and money, because it's not useful, it's not going to actually improve the game, it's going to be just a new neat trick. Again, it's not a laser cut answer, because it's sometimes the effectiveness of an idea. It also depends on how much it takes to implement it. I'll give you a super stupid example. You have the press A to attack, then you want to add, since you have already loot, you want to add elemental damage. Elemental damage is something you can add quite easily. And if it's for adding you a bit more variety to the combat, it's still feature stacking, because you're not really serving any other purpose, but it's working. If you're implementing it with a loot system, and have like more weapons, or you have enchantment, that's good. You actually improved the game and made it more enjoyable. This is kind of the clear-cut answer I can give you. Then it depends on the case and experience. You need to bump your head against projects and see, okay, this is not working as it should. Yeah, that's really it. You.
So you were talking that feedback is very important when doing games. So how is it possible that Blizzard last time did a Diablo, for example, on mobile phones, and they are likes on Facebook or on YouTube, and everything shows that's gonna be a really bad game. So
You're touching a heartstring here, because I've been a fan of Blizzard for a good while. I still am. I mean, I already bought Warcraft Reforged because I was so stoked for that one. I'm a bit less thrilled by Diablo Immortal, I must say. The thing is, feedback is not necessarily an external thing, it could be also an internal thing. The thing that puzzles me is no one entered in the office of the PR team in Blizzard and say, guys, maybe announcing a mobile title as their next main game title in a room full of PC gamer could not be the best idea ever. We should at least give them a teaser of another PC game, or tell them it's a cross-PC game. Nobody said that. That would have been a good feedback and avoided a lot of trouble. The problem with interfacing with the crowd is, as much as I understand how people were angry, honestly, there's a line after which the feedback becomes forgive my French, just shitting on people. Like, constructive feedback is, okay, we didn't like this because we're not the user base you intended us to be after 20 games for PC. You might want to give us at least support for PC. I mean, you can still play it with an Android emulator, but that's not the point. This would have been a good feedback, and some people did this feedback. The rest of the people were like, I mean, things, you know, they've been like the usual. It's not feedback then, that's just like mess, it's just shouting. Internal feedback in that case would have been a bit better probably. And when it comes to AAA studios, it's more likely that you listen to internal feedback because it's easier to filter out the angry screaming, and you have a professional environment with other professional people giving constructive criticism. On the outside is not, but even for indies, like, you need to take it with a pinch of salt, to be fair. So yeah, it's a bit, taking feedback is a bit complex in that scenario. Yes?
So you said we should set the scope on the start of the project, but what if I think of the game and started a Kickstarter campaign, and now I have not $15,000 but $1 million?
But, well, I'm assuming that if you've done a Kickstarter campaign, you already planned out the stretch goals. So you already know how to increase the scope if you get overfunded.
Okay.
And that works well. Actually, people are more willing to overfund a project if they already know what they're going to get for the extra money. So I think it's kind of a requirement at this point. Anyone else?
What do you think about copying mechanics from other games? Is it good for the game?
What do you define copying?
It isn't improving the game. It's just copying from other producers, but it's making it poorly. It isn't new. It isn't, for example, amazing. It's just copy, but this mechanic can be good. Simple.
I mean, this is the difference between iterating over someone else's idea and just ripping off another idea. If you're taking, let's say that you like, I don't know, a really niche game, Dungeon Keeper. Like, any of you has ever played Dungeon Keeper? I'm legitimately amazed. Okay. Okay, let's say they did that. Dungeon Keeper, there's this indie team, they did a game called War of the Overworld. They took the idea one-to-one of Dungeon Keeper, they iterated over it, and they made an actual gem. The game is really good and well endorsed by the original creator. That's iterating over someone else's idea. Let's say that you are EA Games and you take Dungeon Keeper and you make a mobile game where you need to wait 24 hours or pay in-game money to dig each tile in a dungeon tile game. That's ripping off someone else's IP. Even if you legally have the IP, you're ripping off the, you're just ripping off. So the difference is, for me, it's in quality. If you're copying the, I don't know, Dead Rising, and you make one of the bazillion asset flip on Unity where you download the standard zombie, the standard soldier, and you make 4 concrete squares, and it's like, oh, this is the city, I shoot zombies, it's my first game. Honestly, I'm not even tempted to answer to you, like, it sounds harsh, but after the first million games like this you see, it starts getting wary at some point. So it's all a matter of the quality of your outcome. Okay, last question.
Going back to the first question, like, where is the line? Where
of the features?
Yeah, where adding features becomes a bad thing.
As I said, it's not a clear-cut answer. The thing I can tell you, if your feature has a decent cost advantages ratio,
How do you know? Like,
if you're working in a studio, you pay people. If it takes 5 months to implement something, it has a cost. If the cost is too high, you may want to rethink if you really should sink that money into that. If you're doing it with a bunch of friends and you're making your first game, no one is paid, but you kinda work overnight. Again, your time is actually money, because the time you're spending on, consider the time as a currency. Like the month that you spend implementing a completely useless thing, you could have spent it iterating over the game and doing it, making it actually better. So it's always a matter of saying, should I really spend all this time on such thing? Is it actually going to make the game a better experience at the end of the day, or make it more sellable on the market? This is the kind of thing you need to ask yourself. Of course, this is why things need to be decided together when you're working, like when you're like a couple of people working together. Let's say for the glory, but it's like to make your first game or whatever. It's good to discuss this, because different insights to you may sound like the best idea ever that's going to turn your game into a masterpiece. To others may sound like utter bullshit. It's good to find a meeting point. And if you can estimate, that's the best way at the beginning to estimate. After that you will have producers, you will have people that have to do the accounts for you and say, okay, we can spend 5 months worth of salary on this because we don't have the money and we need other things to do. You'll find out that you need to like butcher your project because you're running out of time and money. Experience is a good key factor. At the beginning it's just about discussing it and being sensible about it. Later on, after you bump your head on it, it starts making a bit more sense. I hope that was, this is as clear as I can get from that answer, to be fair. Is that right? So, this is finally, any 3D artist here? You're like the jack of all trades here. Okay. I'll be painfully quick since this is not gonna be much of use. The cool thing about this is like choosing your art style and deciding how to make it, how to make the final game, how the game should look like. Picture starts here, so it's gonna be a bit less boring. So, let's start. Why you should consider art style, colors, and all these things you mentioned before. Because when you're making your own game or you're working on a game, you're conveying a message. If you're conveying a message, and this by many means, this is not just indie. This is also AAA, because it's true that the art style is set from above, but it's also true that you need to convey something in that art style as you're working as an artist. So you need to decide what's the best way to convey that feeling. Let's say that you're working on I'm gonna pick a random game. Let's say you're working on Witcher 3. Okay, right off the bat, first comes to my mind. On Witcher 3, you're tasked with doing a barrel. This is the most exciting task ever. And you will start, like, if you start as a 3D artist, this is gonna be all you will be doing for the first year. Barrel, rocks, cards, and crates. It's gonna be a lot of fun. But let's say you're making this barrel, and the brief says that this barrel should be for an underground cave with a ghost pirate theme. Instead of making the wood just regular, like, you know, bright wood, you may want to make it a bit green with moss and a bit of algae on top of it and seaweed and all this kind of thing that make it look like more fitting to the theme. So even the smallest tasks, the most menial of the tasks, it's actually important the way you achieve it. This is compositing. Okay, this is the first example of art style. Has any of you played this game? Okay, good for you guys. I hope you had a good time. Good for you as well. So this game, the biggest selling point of this game is the art style, of course, because it's not reinventing the wheel. This is Rayman reskinned. Guys, let's get over this. I love this game, but that's Rayman with a reskin. But art style is so good, it's so nice, and it's coherent. There's a choice. For instance, it's easy, even though there's a lot of detailed stuff going on, it's easy to tell apart where is the background, where is the stuff you're supposed to jump over. The choice of colors and shapes in every area, it's actually conveying something. This is a forest, a magical place with lights and whatnot. This is a really fairy tale-ish like feeling. We have really analyzed this, so let's take a look at this. This is from Firewatch. Has any of you played Firewatch? Firewatch all started with a vector image. the team was like, okay, this is a vector concept art, which is the same on the website actually. And it's like, let's make an entire game out of a vector image. I was like, alright, it's a big endeavor. And this one I managed to do that. It's pretty amazing. Again, the choice of color here is like really precise. Like it's not random. In the art style as well, like avoiding to have like shadows and things around the shapes. It's a really complex subject by any means, but this is something, especially if you want to try out making your own games in the near future, which is always a good thing because it does good curriculum. Consider this. This is the difference between the average indie game and things that stand out and sell a lot. Okay. This is about color palette. Like we have these 4 pictures, and every picture is supposed to convey a feeling. Like, for instance, what this could be about. I don't know. What do you guys think this is about?
Nature and calm.
Nature and calm?
Some forest, maybe something to explore.
What would you expect as a player seeing that?
Something happy maybe?
Yeah, perhaps.
Some peaceful spot to rest.
That's also good. What if instead you're walking here?
Something like a story?
Like final boss?
Could be. Could be. Colors, shape and everything give feelings, different feelings. Let's take a look at, let's take a look at this picture here. What does this convey? What this kind of place is this?
Dangerous place.
Avengers place. I mean, what do you guys expect? Like, what do you expect from like you enter this area and you see like this? This is what is like a cinematic. You see this.
Final enemy.
Final enemy.
Cutscene.
Something bad's gonna happen.
Something else better. This is the same picture as before, just with a color change. I literally didn't do anything. It's the green picture from before. Let me show it. Yeah, it's that picture here. I just changed the lighting and the colors. That was it. And it's completely changing the way you feel it. So this is important as well. I know that most of you are programmers and it may sound a bit outlandish, but it's the thing that you can bring on the table, especially if you're a small team. Like there's no such thing as like I'm this and I do only this. Oh yes, I should do this. So, how to convert a color palette to the 3D? This is we get technical, a bit more technical. You need to plan assets like individual 3D assets, but you also need to start working on shaders and lighting. As any of you worked, as any of you actually worked with Unity or a Real Engine before? How many of you Unity? Okay. How many of you are Real Engine? So all Unity, okay. Good. So you shared my pain for the lighting system of Unity. I don't know if you ever tried to achieve any decent lighting in that engine. It's absolutely painful. And yet we managed to make some even decent looking stuff out of it. Lighting is the key. Like most of the time you'll be writing your own lighting systems. Like there's no going around it. If you're working on game, some of you will end up being graphic programmer, engine programmer, rendering programmer, and that's all you're gonna do. It's gonna be lighting system, shader implementation, fog. That's it. You're not gonna do anything else than that, because it's really hard to nail down a specific look, a specific feel. And on this account, I would like to hear some of your preferences, like some games that have such an art style that you're like, wow, this game, I need to have it. Has any of you ever felt like this? You go on like browse through Steam and it's like you see this game, or like PS Network store thingy, and you see that game, it's like, oh, the art style is so cool, I want to buy this.
I saw a game that developed is called Red. It's a racing game and it has a polygonal art style and it's so colorful and it's so fast moving. So I decided to buy it and it's amazing for me. Like it really shows the fast pacing and the area, like the render distance is so far away, and many titles even in this polygonal world. And that's what.
It's simplistic, but it works.
Yeah.
This actually been made by some friends of mine in Milan at the game. I will tell them that the game is appreciated. I mean, they know it, but it's also good to get nice feedback. I mean, the game sold at the end. Yes?
Firewatch, Oxenfree, Life is Strange.
That's all good examples. Okay, more hands. You?
The train, for example, the journey was a great game. This game of colors was great.
It's a good. Yeah, it is. There was another hand there before. Yes?
Darkest Dungeon and Don't Starve.
You're gonna see more of that later. Yes?
I think Limbo is a good example because it's a very simple game, but it's looked very nice and it's working.
Limbo is one of those games so good in the art style that actually ruins the indie market because everybody tried to replicate it. Now we have like a bazillion Limbo clones everywhere, like there's a million Limbo clones. It's one of those games that good, like, last one. Yes.
So for me, like games like Hotline Miami, which has a really unique art style, and Hyperlight Drifter, and these games are in the pixel art style, but they still have unique looks.
Yes. Yes. One of my friends actually is mental over Hotline Miami. Like he even has the vinyl version of the soundtrack and everything. And trust me, I've been hearing a lot about how good that game is from him. It's like the fans of Metal Gear. Like you can tell them away. Like you can sort them away quite quickly. Yeah, we can skip over this. Like, I've been going far too long about art alone. Yes, it's technical. No, stop doing this. Bad presentation, bad. Level compositing, game designers, yes, we have some of them. We have level designers here.
We don't
Yes,
know yet.
you also saved the day, thank you. Level compositing is a super simple thing, but it's simply about how you distribute your level and you lay it down. This is good also if you want to do procedural generation as a programmer, so think about it. It's gonna be the feeling that you convey. As any of you played Alien Isolation? You play a lot of it, okay? As any of you played The Legend of Grimrock? No one has played Legend of Grimrock. Yes?
I played.
Eh?
It's great because the things you have to think about the level is important because you have sometimes to go back, you have to remember some things, how to turn right, left. It's important aspect of the game.
It makes you feel like the level feels like cramped, feels small.
Yes, yes.
This is an easy one. Dark Souls. I was expecting way more. Don't be shy, guys. You'll be like I didn't say finish Dark Souls. I said keep playing. It's important. Dark Souls is a masterpiece of level design because everything is winding up together in this like spiral-shaped level design, going more vertical than horizontal. Again, this is to make you feel little and helpless, like you have like this massive thing towering over you all the time. Soul Reaver. Has any of you played Soul Reaver? No one has played Soul Reaver. Guys, go back and play it because that series is beautiful. This is actually a technical. This is actually I shouldn't do that. A good technical trick that was used by the team of Soul Reaver. Soul Reaver is a PS1 game that has no loading. Like you can explore the entire of the game map at once with 0 loading screens, which on PS1 is kind of a hardcore thing to do. I know that now even the crappiest PC can run World of Warcraft and goes still can move. But how they managed to do this, it was to make this serpent-shaped level areas And the thing is, you would start loading the next bit of the level halfway through this S-shaped corridor, and the double curve allowed you not to, like, prevented you from seeing the rest of the level being loaded. So if you were here, you would never be able to see the end of the corridor. Even if you were through the corridor, you would see only the next bit of the corridor. You wouldn't see the next room. So that's why they made all the corridors in the game are S-shaped, because they allowed people to start loading. Even when you interact with the door to go from one room to another, you start opening the door and you enter into it, and then you move the camera to the next room, because it gives time to load the next room. It's all the kind of clever tricks. This is good because you could do that for mobile now. Mobile may need this kind of optimization. So if you want to work on a mobile game that has like massive level streaming, it's actually a good trick. Back in the day, developers had to be extremely creative. We already asked some questions about the eye, so we're going to skip to the last bit, which is the programmer side. Made you wait a lot, sorry. Okay. Yes. So, asset planning. This is mostly, as a programmer, you'll always be the least favored person in the team. Mostly because you'll be the one putting a strain on everyone else. Like the artist will say, let's go crazy the first 6 months. Then he will go crazy on his own because he has too much stuff to work on. The designer will say, let's go crazy, and he will keep saying, let's go crazy, because he doesn't have to do the art, nor the implementation. And the programmer will say, no guys, let's tone it down. Let's tone it down a notch, please.
Give me a space.
I mean, I've been sent, again, forgive my French, can I say swear words a lot?
Yeah.
They sent me to fuck off. Because when I was working in this indie studio, I was like, oh yeah, we should totally expand the word with some, like, you know, I did this mistake a lot, like scope creep. It's like, we should add like this dynamic panorama with streaming, and the programmers were like, no, fuck you. So, as a programmer, you will be the least favorite person on the team. And then I have this quick test. Name me 4 things that we can do to keep the performance of the project up.
Polycount?
Polycount?
Not expand project.
Sorry?
Not expanding a project, don't add features.
Yes, given, but I mean there is technical requirements, stuff you need to do while working on the actual game.
Good memory garbage collector.
Good. Anyone else? We have 2, we need another 2. Yes?
Toning down the lighting.
Yes?
Shader optimization.
Shader optimization, okay, we found 4. Sorry?
What part was this?
Optimizing particle. Let's see. Poly count is 1. Draw calls, no one said that. It's how much stuff you have on screen at any given time. In Unity you will find it listed as batches. It's called, like when you open the statistic, batches. Just so you know, your upper limit of batches in the PS4 Pro, it's 1500. Now, if you are working with Unity, go back to your project, look at the statistic, and see the higher you can get in your project. I'm positive that most of you will see 4000. I'm positive, because it's really hard to get it down to that. Texture space at render passes. Another thing that's overlooked, like texture space, guys. You don't really need a super high definition texture when working on a game, unless you need to really like close up the thing. So less textures, or the less amount or resolution of textures, the better. And if you really need post effect for a console game, it's good. For a PC game, it's good. Mobile game, Switch, tone it down, guys. Tone it down. I know it looks prettier, but it's a pretty picture. If it runs at 1 FPS, it's a pretty picture, it's not a pretty game. That's it? You said it's another couple of those. Like, is there anything else that comes to my mind? There's another 2 that's been said. Nothing else?
To render only things that you see.
This is some good a good option. Yes, there's also another couple of things, and this is even a summary. We can write another 10 of those. So shader computing, you said it well. Content streaming, you also said it well. Memory allocation, garbage collection, occlusion culling. We have a lot of things going on here, and this is all stuff that you may want to keep track on as a programmer, because as a programmer you are the people doing the diagnostic. Especially in small teams, you will be saying, okay, this game runs well, this game doesn't run well. In bigger companies, it's the technical artist's role to cover these kind of things and also say, guys, we should really tone it down with like the 45 textures you used to make this really nice car. It's beautiful, by any means, the best car I ever seen, but it's making the game crash. So it's a trade-off. And this is also another thing you need to consider. What do you actually need in terms of optimization? What do you need to work with? For instance, do you need level streaming in your game? Then you may want to spend more time on level streaming than garbage collection. For instance, you always have to spend time on garbage collection. Guys, for fuck's sake, always a garbage collection, especially Unity. Unity is terrible with garbage collection. Pull the shit out of everything you can. Let's bring up some cases. Has any of you encountered some hiccups when running projects? Even your own projects on Unity is fine. Like, has any of you ever had issues and problems with optimizing your own work? Or games running like shit? Like if you have seen, if you have some example of games that run really bad on your PC, on your console, please bring them up as well.
Like maybe Easy was that game.
I'm sorry?
I'm not sure how.
DayZ?
Yes.
DayZ had a really poor content streaming. That's why they didn't make at the beginning the interior of any house whatsoever. Just you have to load everything at once. It was really bad. I mean, it was a mod, so honestly, the tech side, I wasn't expecting it to be beautiful.
The forest was really bad at the beginning, and now Arc Evolved is still kind of bad.
Does it run well?
Arc Evolved? I don't think so, not so much.
GTA 5 at the beginning,
They want
at
patch.
least on my computer.
Big words sometimes don't really work with it. There's always situation where like your spec hasn't been tested properly, or like simply put, there's too much stuff going on in a certain area of the game. This is particularly true for bigger games, of course. Like again, a random game, Witcher 3. The optimization pass on that was huge. Like I spent a lot of time to cut down all the unnecessary crap and garbage. Like even models that may be like just below the ground floor in the terrain. Do we really need those? It's a memory allocation. Do we really need that? Of course we don't. So it's this kind of work. It's menial, I know. It's not super interesting. But yeah, you may want to avoid it during the development. This is the last thing, so then we can proceed to the last Q&A. Keeping your poly counts down. Again, depending on the age, depending on the time, and depending on the console. Rise, Son of Rome. Have you ever heard about the game? Rise, Son of Rome? Okay. They went absolutely ballistic with the character poly count. The main characters was 150,000 polygons, and it ran at 10 FPS. And they actually, for the release version, it was still running like crap on the CryEngine, so they lowered it to 60k, so it was less than half. It still looked good as hell. They didn't really need all that poly count, honestly. So this is something you need to, it's easy to go overboard. Even as a AAA studio, it's really easy to go overboard. Reducing the amount of materials per mesh. Like when you work on making a game and putting an asset, try to minimize the amount of textures you have on every asset. This is especially true for a mobile game. For a mobile game, you'd rather have an atlas with all let's say that you have like an atlas for all the props, like lamps, forks, dishes, whatever in your house. Make a single texture with all of it. It's better than having a bazillion small textures for every bit of your house. Loading, this is good Dotting was painfully bad in Oblivion. Said if you played Oblivion, the Elder Scrolls 4. Okay, not many games. Oblivion had like, as soon as you would step like 5 meters away from a tree, it would become a flat card looking at you. And I understand they had to optimize, that was a bit too much possibly. But then again, they tried to make it fun on Xbox 360, which wasn't exactly rocket science at the back of the day. So, but loading is important, like making sure that your level of detail, your item becomes less and less detailed as you go far away until it's taken off completely the world. Instancing, this is a bit more technical, let's say, but it's useful. Like don't put a new version of your object every time. Try to take the object and instance it, so it's one memory call. In Unity it's easy to do this, and it's the best practice to work. In a real engine also, when working on custom engines, you will be tasked with writing this, so good luck with that. And it's not easy at all, but it's important to make the things work properly. Just an expansion of every point. Oh yes, this is the last thing. No, it's not the last thing, we can skip this. Has any of you ever seen this game? Last night, on E3. This is a good mixture of pixel art and 3D. They spent half of development time on post-processing, and you can tell. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. Same for Octopath Traveler. If any of you has heard about it or bought it for Switch, it's a classic RPG with like this mixed art style. Again, a lot of work went to do the post-processing and the watershed actually. I'm assuming no one played this because it didn't really sell well. Battle Chasers Night War. Okay. This is more like World of Warcraft art style. So hand painted, you don't really need as much shader computation, so you get away with more textures. You can like be a bit more intense with textures. Borderlands as well. Some of you played Borderlands, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Hands up. Let's see those hands up. Borderlands is all made with two techniques: painting the outlines on the texture and doing the outlines, the outline shader. Sorry. And the cool technique for making the outlines look nice, they actually took every model. They copied it, they flipped all the faces and increased them by slightly. So you would see always the back faces of the model, and they were pure black. And it also looks like it's been inked out. If anyone played the last Guilty Gear game, they did it really well of that game. I recommend you going and checking how they did the art for that, for Guilty Gear, for the last game. Because it looks like an anime, it looks like an animated cartoon, but it's full 3D. And I need to tell you that it's full 3D because you couldn't tell away. Well, this is PBR, but we already spoke about this. Has any of you worked with PBR before, by the way? You did everything. Why are you here?
It's just selected, so.
Question time. Let's cut it to the end. If you guys want to ask about the jobs in the industry, this is a good moment to ask career advice. Yes.
So, how did your job interview in CD Projekt RED look like? Was it hard to get this job, and were the questions based on your creativity? And yeah, and that's it.
I'm not sure how much of it I can say. I'll tell you this. As a technical artist, most of my questions were both about implementation of things. So they asked me to elaborate creative ways to implement stuff, and we mostly discussed about the potential thing we could add to the game. It was actually pretty chill. I was a pretty chill interview because they just showed me around. And I mean, we'll talk about the final interview. The previous interview is just a set of standard questions. You will see it on any job interview of the office. Which usually why you applied for this position, why you like this company, why would you see yourself in 5 years. This is the usual run-of-the-mill questions, and if you go over that, you get the actual difference between each software house. In CD Projekt, they were pretty chill about showing me around, showing me the game, and asking me how I would improve it, how I would work on it, what I would do that. And they were pleased. They were pleased by me like jotting down ideas with them. And it was pretty chill. Again, it felt like discussing the game development with a colleague rather than being like looked upon. But I suppose that the experience can change a lot.
I have 2 questions. The first one, can you upload this presentation somewhere?
Yes, I will.
Okay, and the second one, how it looks like the beginning of the big projects like CYBERPUNK. The one man discovered, oh, CYBERPUNK will be the best game ever, and he...
AAA works in a particular way. Often, more often than anything, if you don't own the AAA company, if you're not in the top 3 hierarchies, you'll never have a part in the inception of a project. I can tell you it works. Usually it's a mix of what the game director wants, what the board wants, and what is actually sellable. Like they look around, they see what is a good thing a good product that could find a good spot in the industry, in the market, and they say, okay, let's roll with that. But it changes a lot. It depends on the company. Like I can't really say much more about CD Projekt, not because I don't want to, but because I can't. But most companies are like this. It doesn't matter like how big the company is. Like you will have people that decide this. Usually it's either the owner or the board. How much time we have left?
You have to left what?
15 plus 15.
Okay, so we have to finish right now, I think.
Let's squeeze another last question.
Okay, so I have a question.
I'm sorry guys. I'm sorry.
I have a question. You said that one tweet should sell the game. What are 140 characters for CYBERPUNK 2077?
I'm not sure I can say this. And yeah, I mean you can check the CYBERPUNK Twitter. You will find plenty of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think I can tell you this because I will be probably giving out stuff. So.
Okay.
Okay, like legit question.
Last short question about your personal experience.
Yes.
Do you like playing a game which you made, or you have worked in one game for about 6 months or for a year, and you are a bit tired of this game, are you?
I think, personally speaking, depends on how much I worked on the game and what I did for the game. My experience with Last Day of June, the project I worked before that, we were a small company, so I had to do also the QA testing for the game. And before release, I played it through the whole game at least twice per day for a month. It took me 1 year to find the will to even open the game again, just to get the achievements on Steam, because I honestly didn't really want to see that anymore. It's still a beautiful game. I'm happy that I did that, I'm happy that it's been reviewed positively, but I will never touch it ever again. If I were to, for instance, CYBERPUNK, I will definitely play it, because like my part in the game it's not that repetitive, so I'm not experiencing the game until it's released as you guys are. I just know in advance what's gonna be in the game, mostly. This is the main difference. Which probably made it a bit less enjoyable, but still enjoyable.